You're addicted to comfort. Imagine this. You wake up in a room where everything is designed for ease. A mattress engineered to cradle your body just right. A thermostat that keeps the air at your favorite temperature, always. Breakfast is delivered to your door by someone you never meet. You don't have to hunt, don't have to cook, don't even have to talk. All your needs are met before you even realize you had them. You spend the day with minimal friction. No hard conversations, no unknowns, everything predictable, familiar, controlled. Your favorite songs play automatically. You laugh at videos that cost you nothing to consume. You swipe, you scroll, you snack. No resistance, no hunger, no chaos. You've made it, haven't you? This is what we were told to want. A life where nothing hurts, nothing's hard, a perfectly curated existence of comfort. So why does it still feel empty? Why do you wake up tired even after sleeping 9 hours? Why do your lungs feel heavy in a world where there's nothing to run from? Why do you look at your own life, comfortable, safe, padded, and still feel like you're suffocating? Here's the paradox no one dares to confront. The more we eliminate discomfort, the more unbearable life becomes. You chase comfort like it's salvation. But what if it's sedating your soul? What if your greatest fear isn't pain, but the absence of anything real? You were born into a world that told you easy is good, that happiness is the removal of all suffering, that struggle is something to escape, not something to shape you. But what happens to a person who never struggles? What happens to a mind that never feels resistance, a body that never exerts itself, a spirit that never faces fear? What happens when you're protected from every sharp edge of life, only to find that you're still bleeding inside? You start to wonder, is this really living or is it just surviving? Inside a well-decorated cage, comfort is subtle. It doesn't walk in wearing a mask. It doesn't grab you by the throat. It whispers, slowly, softly, stay here, don't push. Don't risk, don't feel too much, and you listen, because it's easy. But here's the truth. The comfort you cling to is not freedom, it's anesthesia. It keeps you numb, keeps you quiet, keeps you tame. And the scariest part, you don't even realize it's happening. You scroll through a million lives you'll never live. You binge stories instead of writing your own. You trade purpose for pleasure, and call it peace. You fill your day with distractions, so you never have to sit in silence and ask the question, who am I without the noise? That silence is terrifying, isn't it? Because in that silence, the truth begins to emerge, raw, wild, and uncomfortable. The truth that maybe you've been sedating yourself with comfort because you're afraid of what life might demand from you if you truly woke up. But comfort won't save you, it will protect you from the pain. Yes, but it will also protect you from the growth, from the joy, from the becoming. Because becoming something real always begins in discomfort. Here's a thought you weren't meant to think. What if the purpose of life is not to feel good, but to grow strong? What if the path you fear the most, the hard one, the uncertain one, is the only one that leads to something worth waking up for? What if your numbness is not a sign of your failure, but a signal, a call to break the trance? You weren't made for numbness, you were made for movement. And somewhere, deep down, you know it. You feel it when you lie awake at night, even after doing everything right. You feel it when you look in the mirror and see a version of yourself that never had to fight, never had to fall, never had to rise. You feel it when your soul whispers, there's more, and you silence it with another scroll. But the whisper is getting louder, isn't it? Because even comfort can't protect you from the truth forever. The question now is simple, but terrifying. Will you keep choosing comfort over becoming, or will you finally begin to remember who you are beneath the numbness? Because the real journey begins where comfort ends. Your addiction to comfort didn't begin with you. It began with an idea, quiet, reasonable, even noble. Let us remove suffering from life. It was the promise of civilization, the goal of progress. A dream that burned through centuries. Better tools, better medicine, better systems, less hardship. And it worked, at least on the surface. You now live in an era where hunger is rare, shelter is expected, and pain is treated like a malfunction rather than a rite of passage. Compared to the lives of your ancestors, you are wrapped in luxury. You have access to more knowledge than any emperor in history. You can speak to someone across the world in seconds. You can avoid almost every form of discomfort with a screen, a pill, or a purchase. And yet, you are not well. Rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide continue to rise. Despite having more of everything, we feel less connected, less alive, less real. Why? Because the pursuit of comfort mutated into something pathological. It no longer just removed unnecessary pain, it began to erase necessary pain too. Pain that teaches. pain that awakens, pain that forms you. The psychologist Carl Jung saw this coming. He wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Comfort, in its modern form, has become the most socially acceptable form of avoidance. A culture of spiritual bypassing disguised as self-care. A psychological numbness framed as wellness. We avoid hard conversations in the name of protecting our peace. We silence our dissatisfaction with mantras like good vibes only. We run from solitude into the arms of entertainment and call it relaxation. But Jung knew something we've forgotten. The soul does not grow in pleasure. It grows in fire, in conflict, in the shadows you refuse to face." Friedrich Nietzsche, often misunderstood as a nihilist, actually believed in something powerful, that suffering was not the enemy, it was the path. He said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Without challenge, you do not transform. Without resistance, you do not rise. Without pain, there is no poetry, no passion, no becoming." But our world has been built to eliminate chaos. It rewards predictability. It engineers convenience. It treats discomfort like a flaw in the system, something to be optimized away, and in doing so it breeds passivity. It encourages conformity. It produces people who are comfortable, yes, but hollow. You see, addiction to comfort is not just psychological, it's existential. It's the rejection of life's inherent difficulty, the denial of its mystery, the refusal to participate in your own evolution. Arthur Schopenhauer, who explored suffering as the essence of life, argued that comfort was not the solution, it was the illusion. To him, life was suffering because desire never ends. You fulfill one need, and another appears. Comfort, then, is just a pause, never a cure. This is why the chase never ends. The perfect chair becomes uncomfortable after an hour. The new phone loses its magic in a week. The vacation doesn't fix your anxiety, because comfort cannot satisfy the deeper hunger. And what is that hunger? Meaning. Comfort may ease the body, but only meaning can feed the soul. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps of Nazi Germany, saw this truth more clearly than most. In the face of unimaginable suffering, he discovered that survival came not from avoiding pain, but from finding purpose through it. He wrote, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure." Does that sound familiar? When you feel the ache of emptiness, what do you reach for? A snack, a show, a scroll. Not because you're weak, but because you're conditioned. You were taught that the goal of life is to feel good, not to become whole. But the truth is, the path to wholeness requires the opposite of what comfort offers. It demands courage, patience, pain, awareness. It asks you to confront the mirror instead of avoiding it. It calls you into the silence you've spent your whole life running from. And that silence is terrifying for one reason. Because it tells the truth. It reveals the gap between who you are and who you could be, between your potential and your reality, between the mask you wear and the soul you hide. Comfort keeps that truth at bay, but it never erases it. And the longer you avoid it, the more it rots beneath the surface, showing up as depression, anger, numbness, self-hate, the symptoms of a life unlived. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist, once said, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." But how can you make anything of yourself when you never allow yourself to struggle? Without resistance, there is no character. Without discipline, there is no freedom. Without discomfort, there is no growth. You must understand. You were not made to be comfortable, you were made to evolve. And evolution requires stress. Not constant suffering, but intentional friction. This is the hidden problem. You've been taught to treat discomfort as the enemy. But it was always the invitation to shed what's false, to face what's real, to rise, not in spite of pain, but because of it. So the question becomes, will you keep sedating your soul with comfort? Or will you begin to listen to what that ache inside you is trying to say? Because it's not weakness, it's the voice of your becoming. You think you're choosing peace, but you might be choosing paralysis. Comfort wears the mask of safety, but behind it, something darker grows, something most never see until it's too late. It doesn't shout, it doesn't break your bones or burn down your house. It simply waits, quietly, silently, while your potential withers in a soft prison. You may not notice it at first because it doesn't come with sirens. It comes with routines, familiarity, small indulgences, days that blur together in their pleasant sameness. But something is dying in that sameness. Discomfort is what gives life texture. Without it, the soul becomes smooth, too smooth to grip onto anything meaningful. When every moment is engineered to be frictionless, your brain stops adapting. You stop growing. Neuroplasticity slows. Habits harden. Your attention span shrinks. Why would your mind evolve if the world no longer demands it? You stop solving hard problems because your environment removes them for you. GPS tells you where to go, algorithms tell you what to watch, notifications tell you what to think about. You don't explore anymore. You consume, and you begin to decay in ways you can't measure with a mirror. Your capacity for focus fades, your emotional resilience softens, you avoid conflict not because you're wise but because you're fragile. You crave comfort like a drug, and like any drug, it begins to consume more than it gives. You need more stimulation just to feel anything, more entertainment to escape the boredom, more distraction to silence the truth. This isn't just psychological, it's neurological. Your brain is reward-driven. It is built to chase dopamine. Every time you swipe, snack, skip the hard thing, you get a hit. But over time, those hits lose their power. So you chase faster, more noise, more comfort, more numbness. This is how addiction works. It begins as pleasure, it ends in dependency. And make no mistake, comfort is a form of addiction. But unlike drugs or alcohol, it's invisible. It's socially approved. In fact, it's praised. People will cheer you on for staying safe, for taking it easy, for avoiding stress, because they're addicted too. We've built an entire culture around sedation. We tell children they should always be happy. We avoid letting them fail. We teach them to fear boredom and pain. We hand them screens before they learn to sit with silence. What kind of adults does that create? Ones who can't handle reality without escape. Ones who don't know how to suffer with purpose, only how to avoid suffering entirely. And so we grow up emotionally brittle, philosophically shallow, spiritually lost. In a world obsessed with comfort, even love becomes transactional. We choose partners not for growth, but for compatibility. Do they make me feel good? Replaces. Do they challenge me to be better? Friendships become shallow. We surround ourselves with people who mirror our comfort zones, not our highest selves. We bond over complaints, not convictions. Over convenience, not courage. We stop telling the truth because truth makes people uncomfortable. So we lie. To others, to ourselves. We say we're okay when we're not. We say we're just tired when we're actually empty. We say we're content when we've quietly given up. And this is how the soul dies. Not in one dramatic collapse, but in a million tiny surrenders. 1,000 times a day you're given a choice, the path of comfort or the path of growth. The brain, left to its own devices, will always choose ease, predictability, control. But the soul, it starves in that place, and the longer you live there, the more foreign life outside of it becomes. You start to fear the things that once made you feel alive. Effort, risk, passion, pain. You fear loving too deeply because it might hurt. You fear chasing dreams because you might fail. You fear speaking your truth because it might cost you comfort, so you stay quiet, and slowly, life shrinks. Nietzsche warned of this in his Vision of the Last Man, a future human who avoids all struggle, all greatness, all intensity, a creature that lives long but lives small. He called it the death of the soul, and we are close to becoming them. Because here's the real tragedy. Comfort robs you of the chance to discover who you truly are. You don't know your strength until you're tested. You don't know your values until they're threatened. You don't know your voice until you dare to speak when it shakes. And if your entire life is built around avoiding those moments, you may live longer, but you'll never truly live. This is the unseen consequence, a comfortable life that feels safe, but isn't yours. Because you never forged it, you inherited it, you coasted through it, you consumed it, but you didn't create it. And what the soul craves, more than comfort, more than ease, is creation. To build something, to endure something, to become something. But comfort doesn't care who you become, it only cares that you stay. Still, silent, obedient. And maybe that's why it's so dangerous, because it doesn't destroy you with violence. It seduces you with softness, and by the time you realize what you've lost, it's not your energy or your time or your youth, it's your fire. So now you see the cage. But here's the twist. It has no walls, no locks, no guards. Just the illusion that walking out would hurt too much. And it will, at first, because rebellion always starts in pain. But pain, when chosen, becomes power. This is your moment, not for a resolution, for a revolt. You don't fight comfort with more comfort, you fight it with deliberate resistance, with choices that feel like dying in the short term, but create life in the long term. The ancient Spartans knew this. They didn't chase ease, they trained in hardship. Cold baths, bare feet, scarred hands. Why? Because they believed character was not found, it was forged. Modern society calls that masochism, but they called it freedom. You have to reclaim that mindset. You have to reverse the compass. Instead of asking what feels good, ask what strengthens me. That question changes everything. You begin to choose cold over warmth, stillness over distraction, honesty over harmony, growth over comfort. You start to wake up early, not because it's trendy, but because you're tired of sleeping through your potential. You embrace boredom, not as a curse, but as the sacred silence where ideas are born. You seek discomfort, not randomly but with intention. This is called voluntary adversity, and it's the antidote to passive decay. Nietzsche called it amor fati, the love of fate. The ability not just to endure hardship but to embrace it as necessary for greatness. But this isn't about becoming a monk or a warrior, it's about becoming fully human. Because a full human being is not one who feels good all the time, it's someone who can feel everything, and still move forward. You stop chasing happiness like a possession. You start cultivating meaning like a garden. You stop looking for the path with the least resistance. You start walking the one with the most revelation. That's the great paradox. True freedom doesn't come from avoiding discomfort, it comes from mastering it. And once you begin, something miraculous happens. The discomfort that once broke you, now builds you. Fear becomes a signal, not of danger, but of importance. Failure becomes feedback, not of who you are, but of what you must still learn. Loneliness becomes sacred, not a void to be filled, but a fire to purify you. And slowly, comfort loses its grip. You begin to see pleasure as a tool, not a prison. You enjoy rest, but after effort. You enjoy food, but after hunger. You enjoy love, not as a bandage, but as a mirror. Because you no longer need comfort to hide. You can finally use it to heal. This is rebellion, not against society, not against technology, but against your own domestication. You're not here to be pacified. You're here to be purified. That doesn't mean you hate comfort. It means you master it. Like fire, you don't let it burn wild. You learn to contain it, control it, use it. You become the kind of person who runs toward the storm. Not because they like pain, but because they know that's where the truth is. This is the path of creators, leaders, and revolutionaries. They didn't rise by being more talented. They rose by becoming more tolerant of discomfort. Look at Mandela, 27 years in a prison cell, and still emerged with peace in his voice. Look at Frida Kahlo, tormented by physical pain, yet painted visions that shook the world. Look at James Baldwin, facing racism and exile, and still wrote with a fire that no comfort could silence. They did not seek ease, they sought truth, and truth does not grow in padded rooms. So now it's your turn, to wake up and ask not, how can I avoid discomfort? But what discomfort will shape me? To put your phone down. Not because it's bad, but because your mind is more precious. To sit in silence, not because it's easy, but because your soul has something to say. To face your fears, not because you're fearless, but because they hold the key to your future self. And no, you won't be perfect. You'll fail, you'll slip, you'll fall back into the warm arms of comfort. But each time you rise, something in you changes. The cage gets weaker, the fire gets stronger, and you begin to realize, you were never addicted to comfort. You were addicted to the version of you that needed it. But that version is fading, and someone else is emerging, someone stronger, someone sharper, someone free. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind howling, the ground behind you familiar, warm, soft, safe. But something inside you stirs. Not a voice exactly, a pull, a longing. Not for safety, but for flight. And that's when it hits you. You were never meant to stay comfortable. You were meant to evolve. The real truth, the final, most unsettling, most liberating truth is this. You are not here to feel good. You are here to become real. And realness is forged in discomfort. Because comfort is a cocoon, and a cocoon is only beautiful if it breaks. Stay too long inside it, and what was once shelter becomes your tomb. This is the paradox no one wants to face. Comfort is not life's reward. It's life's test. The test of whether you'll mistake the easy for the true. The test of whether you'll settle for relief when you're meant for revelation. And most people fail, not because they're weak, but because no one ever told them. Comfort is supposed to feel good. But it's not supposed to feel like home. Your true home is in motion. Your nature is not to stay, but to stretch. You are a becoming. Every cell in your body is dying and rebirthing. Every scar is a page in your story. Every painful moment you endured was not a glitch in the system. It was the system. That fight you had, that loss you carry, that dream that broke you, that failure that humiliated you. None of it was meaningless. It was the furnace where the illusion of safety burned away, and the truth began to form. The truth that suffering isn't the enemy. It's the call, the sacred alarm that wakes you from sedation, because the goal of life is not to feel okay. The goal is to become whole. And wholeness isn't found in pleasure, it's found in presence. The presence of pain, of uncertainty, of love so deep it terrifies you. Comfort keeps you numb, but discomfort makes you see. Everything sharpens when you're no longer trying to escape. The air, the ache, the beauty of fleeting moments, the raw, untamed feeling of being alive. This is why Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the unimaginable cruelty of a concentration camp, said, "What man actually needs is not a tensionless state but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. Not a tensionless state, not a padded life, but a struggle that means something." And here's the final revelation. Meaning is always hiding behind the things you fear. Meaning is always dressed in discomfort. That's why the most meaningful moments in life, birth, love, loss, creation, transformation, are never easy. They are messy. They are intense. They break you open. Because only broken things can let the light in. You weren't meant to avoid that. You were meant to say yes to it. To feel the cold and walk anyway. To hear the fear and act anyway. To feel the pain and still love anyway. Because the greatest power you hold is not the power to stay comfortable. It's the power to remain conscious inside discomfort. That is the real awakening. When you stop asking life to get easier, and start asking yourself to get stronger. When you stop measuring success by how calm your days are, and start measuring it by how deep your soul has become. When you stop fleeing discomfort like a curse, and start welcoming it like a teacher. And then something wild happens. Discomfort loses its grip on you. Because once you no longer need to be comfortable, you become unbreakable. You become the storm, and the soft prison you once lived in can no longer hold you. Not because the world changed, but because you did. So the next time you're about to pick the easy path, pause. Ask yourself, is this the path to who I am, or just the path to who I've always been? Because comfort is seductive. But freedom is earned. And the cost is your old self. But what you gain in return is everything.